Hi, this is Jim Moyna, and this is my recap of the Tacklewarehouse Pro Circuit Lake Murray Tournament 2021. So, anyways, I finished 47th place out of about 160, I think it was 161 in this tournament. And so that's a decent finish. It's in the money. I made the cut to fish day 3 because the top 50 fished day 3, then top 10 fished day 4. So after day 1, I was 33rd, then I dropped to 46th, and then I dropped one more spot yesterday and did not qualify for the last day. So anyways, just kind of reviewing the tournament. I got here and there's a couple things you want to keep in mind. There's a bait fish in this lake called herring, and they spawn this time of year, so the fish like to pick on these herring when they're spawning, and the herring will spawn up on a lot of like shallow gravel points and shoals, like that sort of thing. And then the other thing is you got the bass themselves are spawning. So not all the bass are chasing the herring, not all the bass are spawning. The fish come in, spawn, then go back out and eat the herring. So anyways, so you had two options there. You had option 1, go for the herring eaters. Option 2, go for the spawners. So in practice, we had 2 days of practice, so I kind of took a look at both of those options, and the herring deal, I'm not that good at it. I found one point out here that had a school of fish on it. Otherwise, I caught a couple of singles here and there in practice. And then as far as the spawners go, I never found like a giant spawning fish that I had to go to. Just saw a lot of 1.5 to 3 pounders. But and then there's a lot of docks in here, so you have some coves with just wood in them, some coves with docks, and they'd spawn in either one. So anyway, so going into the first day of the tournament, my strategy was I wanted to hit that point first where that school was, and having a boat number, what was my boat number, 50 something, to head out. Well, there was somebody already there, so I didn't get to go to that spot right away. So I ran a bunch of other points. Had 2 fish in the live well there. Each were about 14.5 inches after a couple hours of it. And, that ain't much. Those are 1 pound, 10 ounces, probably, something like that. So I thought, well, I'll go check that point, see if it's open. So I go to the point where I had the school in practice. Nobody was there. And so I go there. After about 10 minutes of working it, I finally catch one on a walking bait, a topwater walking bait. It was a nice one too. It was like, 3.25, 3.5 pounds. So a good fish. So I worked the area a bunch more at that point without anything. And literally I'm just about ready to pack up and leave when all of a sudden the whole point just erupted with fish chasing herring. It was quite the sight. And to consider the fact that those fish were there and I couldn't get any of them to even look at anything, it's just kind of makes you wonder what the hell you're casting. Why am I casting these lures when all these fish? I mean, literally, there must have been like a dozen fish blowing up on herring, like right there. So, and of course, I immediately caught one, because when they're aggressive like that, that's one thing I learned. If you can get your bait to one of these fish that have just blown up on a herring, if you can get your bait over there within 5 seconds, you got a pretty good shot at catching that fish. But if you're like 15, 20 seconds after it, probably not going to catch them. So anyway, so now I saw all these fish on this point. So, power pools went down. That's how shallow it was. Power pools went down, and I sat there for a long time. And I'd catch one about every 25 minutes or so, throwing various baits, throwing fluke style baits, shaky head baits, top water, because they did come up and bust, but they never came up busting like that again. But you get like 2 busting at once, or 1 busting. So when that would happen, I'd throw my top water over there and catch one. So by that time it was all said and done, I probably caught, I mean, I literally stayed there for like 4 hours and caught about 8 fish, called out my 2 little ones from the morning, and had about 8 fish. And then I left with about another hour to fish. Left the spot because things have gotten pretty slow the last couple hours there. Although, I mean, literally, you know, I mean, a half hour before I left, you know, I still caught one at that time. But, you know, I felt I wanted to just check on some of them spawning fish. So I ran to a cove, and I'd never even been to it. I just picked one on the map, said, I'll go here. Ran there, saw a bunch of garters. By that I mean the males will sit and guard the newly hatched eggs, so they call those male garters, or even when they're guarding the eggs, are male garters. But so I ran a bunch of that, saw a bunch of those. Saw one big one come out after bait from under a dock, but I never upgraded. So I weighed, what did I weigh? 15, 14 the first day with the fish I had. So it was a decent start for 33rd. Day 2, obviously I'm gonna go right to that point. I got a worse boat number on day 2, so there could be more guys going out ahead of me. But I figured, well, the guy that beat me there the first day, well, he's gonna be behind me, so I should be able to get it. So I go out, run to that point, and sure enough, somebody's there. so it's time to go figure something else out. So I run a bunch of other points, trying to get on that herring bite again, and nothing happened. So then after a couple hours of that, I go back around to the point where I caught him, nobody's there, and I move in there, and I work that spot to death, and I never see a fish blow up. I never get a bite, not a sniff, not a thing. And I guess that's notorious for these herring fish. They're not likely to hang out in any one place for too long, and that's exactly what happened here. It was just dead, nothing. So then, okay, I'm gonna go hit the spawning type. I'm gonna go for the fish that are in the spawning mode. So I decided to go back to the area where I finished the day before, because I did see some garters there, and I saw that one big one under that came out from under that dock. So I knew there was some promises there. And actually, let me back up. I didn't go there right away. I probably spent an hour and a half. I probably spent 2 hours doing other things. I mean, doing other spawning cuts. And I saw some fish hanging out, but they were just really just not interested in anything. They weren't locking in on beds. I couldn't even see the ball of fry if that's what they're guarding. I don't know. They were just really just not interested in much of anything to do with me or any lure I threw out there. So then I decided to go to the cut where I ended day 1, and immediately started seeing fish again, and it probably fished about a half hour, and I finally caught my first one. Finally caught him, and it was literally like 11:15, 11:30, so half the day was gone, and it took me half the day to finally catch one. Well, but that one fish told me, you know, okay, I don't understand this herring thing too well, so I do understand spawning fish a little bit, or even more than a little bit. Maybe not top of the line understanding, but got a pretty good understanding. And so I decided to just hit some docks and look for betters, and so that's what I did the rest of the day. Ended up catching 7 keepers by the end of the day, and weighed 13.5, I think it was, which put me in 46th place. When you add 13.5 added to 15.14, that total put me in 46th place. So got to fish day 3. The first 2 days we had sunny weather. Okay, sunny, and it was really cold in the morning, but it was sunny all day. And those fish like docks when it's sunny. Day 3, we got the heavy cloud cover, we got the wind, and we got the massive rain. So the first thing I did is I went right to good point from day one. 0. Started running another point, 0, 0, 0. Then I started running new points I haven't even been to, because I really feel like with this cloud cover, the fish are going to be more aggressive, and if I just hit the right point, I'm going to load the boat. Finally, I get to a point, I'm working it, I see a fish blow up. I mean, I had to make a monster cast, aka the Herman Munster cast, if you know what I'm talking about. The Herman Munster cast, and I land the bait probably about 8 seconds after the blow up, and probably about 6 feet to the left. I mean, on a monster cast like that, I mean, the bait like hooks and slides or slices, whatever. It's hard to throw it right on top of it. Sometimes you can, sometimes the bait kind of does its own veering. But landed about 6 feet away, worked the bait for about 8 feet towards me, and then my first bite of the day got him in. It was my biggest one too. But that was the highlight. I mean, I worked that area really good without having another bite. Never saw another fish blow up on that point, so it just seemed to be a lone one. But I did keep running more points, thinking, okay, I found this one. I will go hit a bunch of points, and before it's all said and done, I'll have a good limit. But I got to be halfway through the day, and I still only had the one fish. So I decided, well, I'll go play the dock. It's a shallow dock game, and that's what I did. Caught 2 more, just regular keepers. Ended up with only 3. Ended up 47th place. So that's where it was. So what's the lesson I learned? I learned one. With this herring bite, those fish can be there, but they're not going to hit your top water unless they want to. Like what I learned on day one, I mean, I threw that top water just all over the place, and I threw it over a bunch of fish that were sitting there. It's only once they blew up, then I knew I had to just hunker down and just throw on a whole wide variety of baits at them. And like I said, fluke, shaky head, swim bait. I don't know, other things I can't. I mean, I threw other baits too that probably didn't catch anything, but I'd say the shaky head, the top water, the fluke, and the swim bait were probably the best. But it was a wide variety, and I only caught like 7 or 8 off of that spot, so it wasn't like I kept drilling them, hammering them into the boat. So that was a big lesson. And I realized my herring game is not what it needs to be. I need to, when they're not active and blowing up, I need to have confidence in some bait of some kind that I can fish. It's got to be subsurface bait of some kind. I did hear some guys, there's a little bit of chatter, guys getting them on jerk baits yesterday. Another guy said on stage he got them on a crankbait, some herring fish. So that part of the game I need to improve. Obviously, I know a lot about jerk baiting smallmouths back home, but coming down here, I did try it. I tried it on and off throughout the competition when I was on the herring game. But if you don't get bit on one, well, you're going to put it down and go back to something you have got bit on. So, what other lessons to learn? Interesting as far as the spawners go. What I found that was interesting, it seemed like the season had progressed to where I wasn't finding much in the very tippy backs of the pockets. Seems like the spawners I was finding were once the pocket starts out really shallow and then gets out to about 3, 4, 5, 6 feet, then you can start looking at the banks. But once you're on the bank and it really flattened out back there just wasn't much going on for some reason. So that I kind of, and any docks that were way in the back on those really shallow flat pockets in the back where, it was maybe no more than 3 feet under that dock, and even though that dock ran out to the very center of the pocket, I just didn't have much action in that situation. My best docks were, it seemed like, I did want to have a flat bank, and I wanted, but I also wanted the dock to, fall into at least 4 to 5 foot of water at least. So, but there was definitely some room to improve on my dock game too. That's for sure. I still don't understand why yesterday I don't know. Docks always are better when it's sunny. We didn't have the sun yesterday. We had heavy rain, but still, the reason why some of these fish are around these docks is because they're fry. The fry go around the poles of the docks. The bass fry, they don't like to swim just out in the middle of nothing. They like to be in shade. They like to be around a pole, around a stump top. So I think there was fry around a lot of these dock posts. So that's why I'm like, I'll still fish these docks anyways, because the balls of fry will be gathered there, and it's just a gathering spot for the fry, even though it's shady out, it's cloudy. It's still a place where these fry might go to. But it didn't work out. And and one more point on that is I did see Gray Buck on stage, saw him weigh his fish, and he made the comment how well he did on the docks on day 2. But yesterday in the heavy cloud cover, he only caught like 3 or 4 himself. So apparently the dock bite was tougher yesterday in general. But that's about all I got to say. So, I mean, I could sit here probably for another hour and talk about this tournament, but we'll leave it at that. And thanks for watching. Over and out.